Sarah was a bright and bubbly 10-year-old girl. She loved to play outside with her friends, ride her bike, and read books. One day, Sarah was walking home from school when she was abducted by a stranger. The stranger, a man named John Smith, was a serial kidnapper. He had been targeting young girls for years, and Sarah was his latest victim. Smith lured Sarah into his car by promising her candy. He then drove her to his remote cabin in the woods. Sarah was terrified. She tried to scream and escape, but Smith was too strong. He tied her up and locked her in a small room. Sarah was all alone, and she didn't know what to do. Smith came to see Sarah every day. He would bring her food and water, but he never untied her or let her out of the room. Smith told Sarah that he was going to keep her forever, and that she would never see her family again. Sarah refused to give up hope. She knew that her family was looking for her, and she was determined to escape. One day, when Smith came to visit Sarah, she managed to loosen her ropes and sneak out of the room. Sarah ran as fast as she could through the woods. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew that she had to get away from Smith. Sarah ran for hours until she finally came to a road. Sarah flagged down a passing car and told the driver what had happened. The driver called the police, and Sarah was taken to the hospital to be checked out. Sarah was physically unharmed, but she was traumatized by the experience. Smith was arrested and charged with kidnapping. He was sentenced to life in prison. Sarah was reunited with her family, and she eventually recovered from the trauma of her kidnapping. However, the experience of being kidnapped had a profound impact on Sarah. She became more withdrawn and anxious. She was also afraid to go outside or be alone. Sarah's parents enrolled her in therapy to help her deal with the trauma. Over time, Sarah began to heal. She started going outside again and spending time with her friends. She also continued to go to therapy. Sarah eventually became a strong and independent woman. She never forgot what happened to her, but she didn't let it define her. One day, Sarah decided to share her story in the hope of helping other victims of kidnapping. She spoke at schools and community events, raising awareness of the issue and offering support to other survivors. Sarah's story is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope. Sarah's story does not end there. As she grew older, Sarah became increasingly passionate about helping other victims of kidnapping. She founded a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing support and resources to survivors. Sarah also became a vocal advocate for stricter laws against kidnapping and harsher penalties for perpetrators. One day, Sarah received a letter from a young girl named Emily. Emily had been kidnapped and held captive for several months. She was finally able to escape, but she was still struggling to cope with the trauma. Sarah wrote back to Emily, offering her support and advice. Sarah and Emily began to correspond regularly. They shared their stories and supported each other through their recovery. Sarah encouraged Emily to speak out about her experience and to become an advocate for other victims. Emily eventually decided to share her story with the media. She spoke about the fear and isolation she felt while she was captive. She also talked about the challenges of recovering from such a traumatic experience. Emily's story inspired other victims of kidnapping to come forward and share their stories. Sarah's organization grew rapidly, and she became a leading voice in the fight against kidnapping. One day, Sarah received a call from the police. They told her that they had arrested a man who was suspected of kidnapping several young girls. The police had found evidence that linked the man to Sarah's kidnapping. Sarah was shocked and relieved. She knew that this was her chance to bring her kidnapper to justice. She worked closely with the police and helped them build a case against the man. The man was eventually convicted of kidnapping and sentenced to life in prison. Sarah was grateful that she could finally bring closure to her own case and help other victims along the way. Sarah continued to work tirelessly to help victims of kidnapping. She became a national expert on the issue and was often called upon to speak at conferences and events. Sarah's story is an inspiration to us all. She showed us that even the most horrific experiences can be overcome with courage and determination. Sarah's legacy is one of hope and resilience. She is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always the potential for healing and transformation.